What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to a very special C4SVillains movie review. And today we're going to be talking about Black Widow, starring Scarlett Johansson, Florence Pugh, and a bunch of amazing actors in this really good entry into the MCU. Of course, I am here with my co-host, as always, legendary Vash. Vash, thank you so much for joining me on this one.
And thank you for always having me, James. And we're here to talk about Black Widow. For those that haven't seen us before, go check out our C4SVillains show that we're live every Friday evening. And definitely for those that are tuning in for the first time, welcome, because this is a channel for all your geekdom and everything. And to talk about Black Widow, because it was a movie that I had when me and James did our comic book anticipation of the year. I think Black Widow was in my lower half, and I had low expectations because, you know, it's been pushed. It's a movie that don't really have too much consequences. We know this person is dead in the president of the MCU. So like, I didn't have too much thought like, hey, maybe my good, maybe it'll be entertaining, whatever. But it far exceeded my expectation, and I had a great time watching the film and came to talk about it with you guys on the chat and also with my co-host JB here.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk about this movie. I've seen it twice now. And I loved it the second time that I saw it, man. Like, I did have I was really excited for this movie for it to come out, but I didn't have super high expectations because, like you just said, like, we didn't know. We knew it wouldn't have any like real stakes on Natasha's life, right? Because we know this takes place 2 years before Infinity War. We know that she lives through Infinity War. She dies in Endgame. So it's like, what would
spoilers
be the
for anybody?
Right. So it's like, what would really be the stakes of this movie? And the stakes of this movie is all of the widows, right? All of the widows that were brought into this program by Dreykov, and all of the widows that will be saved. I'm sure after like the events of this movie, I'm sure that's what like Yelena and the other widows were doing, going around the world, saving all of the other widows. So I hope we get like a TV series of that. Even if it's only like 4 episodes, I would love a TV series. I would love, even if it's a movie, I would love that too. Like, what do you think?
So, question before we go for the details. Are we going to do like a short 5-minute general thoughts, non-spoiler review for people, or are we going just straight spoilers? I just want to confirm before we continue further.
Yeah, we're going to do general thoughts, but I just wanted to know your thoughts on this one question.
On this one question, I would love to see a limited series on Disney Plus, like something with Florence Pugh and her character, and with the other widows. I would definitely like to see more of that in the present timeline, and with the end credit scene to see additional information about that. With the current timeline, so I'd definitely love to see more connections of the widows, because if people haven't read the comics, there's more than one Black Widow, but there's only one character that's good as her. But there's other widows that goes against her in the comics and everything. So I would love to see other interpretations of that with Hawkeye, and with maybe other versions of said Taskmaster, because I have my thoughts about that too. So I can't wait for us to dive into it, because for those that don't know, me and Jace have no comments on what we know about Black Widow within each other. Usually we do talk about things beforehand, you know, with Loki and thing, but this time we're going blind with each other review, and I'm enjoying this because it just shocks what we're gonna say to each other. So this will be fun.
Yeah, the film was directed by Kate Shortland. Scarlett Johansson was the executive producer on this movie, and she handpicked this director. And I actually think that the director did a really good job with this movie. So let's get into general thoughts on the film. Like, what are your general thoughts on Black Widow?
So with general thoughts, like coming into the film, knowing that this doesn't have full concrete damage to the MCU, like such as we know like you mentioned, James, Scarlett Johansson after Endgame is dead. So we know that this takes place after Civil War and before Infinity War. So how did she like? What did she do within those 2 3 years time skip? Well, sorry, not time skip, timeline of them see that we don't know as the audience. So I was excited because for those that don't know about Black Widow and Hawkeye in the comics, they go through in life. They do a lot of missions for Nick Fury, dark missions as well, and they always mention about the Budapest. So like we knew we're gonna get this Budapest type of situation. So that's what was exciting for me. I'm like, oh, finally we get the comment that has been going on for almost 21 films, the Budapest situation. So that's what excites me. I love that we finally get the full backstory of this and her emotion. I feel like ScarJo did an amazing acting throughout this film as well. So I was shocked, not in a bad way, but more in a good way because I feel like this film was supposed to come out last year, but it was so pushed so far. But this technically takes in the timeline, like we mentioned, between Civil War. But I feel like ScarJo has improved in her acting as the character of Black Widow, but and overall as a character. Seeing Red Guardian as well, that was amazing. That far exceeded my expectations because I thought Red Guardian was going to be like a laugh stack, but from the trailers, it actually, with context, it was much better than expected. To see the other widows, it was great. The I feel like the choreography was top notch. I tried to watch it twice. I didn't I didn't finish, but seeing the scenes so well choreographed, it was well edited as well. And the director that James mentioned, I feel like did a great job handling the scenes and plus the action. And additionally, with if people don't notice, this is actually was a small cast. This wasn't a lot of type of actors. It was a lot of background actors, but small cast, core cast overall. And I feel like the storytelling was good pacing. Like honestly, I was really entertained overall, far exceeding my expectation. And if you give me a overall thoughts, like trying to ask me for my score, I give a solid 8 or 8.5 out of 10. Out of 5, I give a solid 4, like a 4 or 4.2. It was far exceeding my expectation. And for those that feel like, oh, she's dead in Endgame, and what's the point of watching? Honestly, if you want to see the film, if you enjoy the character itself, go watch it because it's honestly entertaining and it gives you a backstory of a character that we enjoy in the film, and it throws jabs with certain things that she has done as the character. So I love that too.
Yeah, man. Like,
The
I
pose.
yeah, right. I feel like people need to look at the MCU movies like a comic. Like Kevin Feige has literally made this universe like a comic book series come to life. And sometimes you jump around in time. Sometimes you're not going to get all of the story that you want from one character because you need to pick up the next issue in order to get more of that information. So I'm going to use that reference a lot throughout this review. But I feel like people need to start looking
That's
at
perfectly said.
these movies like that and the TV shows as well. But for me, general thoughts, this film was about family. It was about redemption. It was this very deep character. Yes, family. It was this
I know, of
very
course.
deep, like, character story of these people who found each other in a hopeless place, right? In this hopeless situation. And they found family together against all odds, right? So I really, really like that. This film is also a really, really good spy movie. The whole time I was watching it, I was instantly thinking about Winter Soldier. I was like, I wish I could see Black Widow in like a Mission Impossible movie. That would be amazing.
That's what I was thinking. I felt like this was like a Mission Impossible. That's the way I felt it, and it felt so good. I'm like, I don't mind seeing ScarJo in the future, like Mission Impossible 8 or something. Like this will work well for her.
Yeah. Like I also loved like exploring the other widows and what life is like for them. And we're gonna get into spoilers here in a second. But they're very conscious of what they're doing, but they can't control it. Like much like being in the sunken place from like Get Out. Like you're just a passenger as
Yes.
someone else is using your body. So it's like that's the kind of stakes that this movie has. Like it's not about Natasha. It's about all of these girls that were trafficked, right? That have been through human trafficking and have been experimented on to become the best assassins in the world, stripped away from their families. So that's where the stakes are in this film. It's not about, the stakes aren't about Black Widow. Like, we know where her journey ends, but this story was about the widows and freeing people and giving them back their free will. So that was something that I really, really enjoyed. I'm gonna throw some shade at the Charlie's Angels movie, the last one that came out with Elizabeth Banks as the writer and director. These two movies are two movies that try to portray strong female spies. One succeeds, one fails horribly. I feel like the Charlie's Angels movie spent the entire film saying that men are terrible and this is why women are awesome, because men are awful and women have to overcome, instead of just showing me badass women doing amazing shit and rising above adversity when it comes to terrible people that also include men, right? There's terrible people in general.
It sucks to say. We say it in our daily lives. Actions speak louder than the words, and words are powerful enough the way you say it. But when it's translated to movies, people forget that. They feel like that us, the audience, need to hear the words constantly. No, if you say once in the movie in the beginning, boom, okay, fine. Now show it the action of those words throughout the next 90 minutes. That's how you prove us, the audience, okay, men are evil, men are bad. Cool. Now for the next 90 minutes, prove to us why men are evil. Don't need to say it every single 5 minutes of the movie. That takes it away, and that makes it feel very cliche and very cringy.
Yeah, man. Like, I hate when you try to, and the CW has done this too. Like, they just talk about feminism. They just talk about empowering women, and they don't do a lot of things to actually do that. I feel like Green Arrow and the Canaries, perfect example of an amazing show that would have worked, starring amazing women, would have worked so well. That would have done an incredible job on the show. And then they cancel it. And I mean, I'm happy that we have Superman and Lois. I am happy that we have that show, because
which is good.
It is good, but still, like, I wish.
Just can't. I can't wait for to catch up and see the storyline, because I'm kind of half and half of the storyline. But that's a whole different conversation for another time.
Okay, yeah, I'll catch up for sure, and I'll get there. But let's get into the movie itself. Let's dive into spoilers. So the film starts off, we're in Ohio, 1995. When I saw that date, I instantly thought of Captain Marvel, because, like, oh, the events of Captain Marvel take place around the events of this movie. So that's, well, the beginning of this movie anyway. So I thought that was really, really cool.
Yeah.
And then we get to see Natasha and Yelena playing. And then, like, we got to see, like, the first glimpse of the family aspect between them. How did you feel about that?
When I first was watching, I'm like, wait, is this Black Widow? Like, it looks so different. And then I'm like, hold up. Oh, and then once, so it's funny. Once I saw the father, that's when I knew this was actually the Black Widow film. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's Red Guardian. And then that must be Natasha. That must be, I assume, her sister or something. And then once they said that we gotta go, I'm like, wait a minute, this is the mission, there's a fake family and everything. And then it started to go. I'm like, oh. And then once he turned, I think, a tank or a boat, once he flipped that, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And then once the car was coming in, changed, I'm like, wait, is that a shield symbol? Is that a shield symbol? Like, oh, wow. So shield knows about them and everything. So, like, the whole beginning, I love it because it felt like an origin story, that we are seeing the origin of the Black Widow, of Natasha Romanoff, seeing how she started and everything, and the relationship of the girl Yelena that we see later, that she becomes kind of like the MacGuffin of the story. And I'm very happy to see that.
Yeah, man. Like, I love seeing the family, and like you said, we get to that moment where it's like, oh shit, like, yeah, everything's about to hit the fan right now. We have to leave. Everything that we built as this family is all about to be over. I love that that sequence on the runway while they're trying to get away on the plane from Hydra, not necessarily Shield, but specifically Hydra, because the research that they stole was from Hydra, from the Winter Soldier experiments, getting the perfect blueprint of the brain. So I thought that was also really cool, knowing that it was actually Hydra, all of the Hydra people from Shield that were chasing them. And then we finally get our first look at Dreykov, and then the girls are turned over to Dreykov, and then they're sent in containers to Russia. This was where I was like, oh, this movie's really fucking dark, man. Like, this is going to cover
That's
human
what I was saying.
trafficking. Yeah, this is going to be a really, really serious movie about what happens when these kids are stripped from their families, their identities are stripped away, and they're forced to become these assassins who are now chemically changed, chemically subjugated to be these assassins. So it's like they can't even control themselves. And I also loved the newsreels of seeing all of the different points in history where the Black Widows have made assassinations. It immediately made me think of the Winter Soldier when we saw those reels of the Winter Soldier throughout history changing certain events. So I thought that was really, really cool.
I really love because if I'm correct, I text you when I saw the whole type of human trafficking, like while I was watching the film, and I texted like, "Wait, James, are they going like this?" And he was like, "Yeah." I'm like, I didn't expect that to see the dark side because for those that don't know, that's how it happens in the comics. For her, it depends on what type of origin story you read, but to see that they actually brought that and show the human trafficking aspect of the woman and within slavery, with Europe and everything that was real back then, still is in some way, shape, and form. And to see that happening in the movie, I'm like, okay, I'm glad they showed this, and it shows how the Black Widow type of program is, and to see that this program goes from chemical aspect to fully go into the second, set. It makes it feel like, yo, they literally are controlled by literally from the top of the air. And what got me fucked up is like, I can't supposed to talk about it, but they can't kill Drake off because of her perfume. That's where it got me a bit, I don't
Well,
know,
it's
like
it's it's not
questionable
perfume.
with the perfume.
It's not perfume. We all have pheromones. So they're all just like programmed to when they smell his pheromones, they can't attack him. So we all have pheromones as human beings. So they're just locked into
Oh,
his
okay.
pheromone to where it creates a chemical reaction to where they can't attack him. Like
Mm.
whenever you're attracted to someone's scent, that's their pheromone. So that's what they're locked into. It's chemically, like they've been chemically altered to not like go after him because of his scent. I thought that was really, really cool. That's some real like spy shit, you know?
All right, so when you explain it, it clarifies because I was a bit confused because I thought it was perfume or like or some type of scent or smell. But now when you say that, it makes more sense. So now I take that off my con because at first it was like kind of like I don't know how that works. But when you explain it, much better understanding.
Yeah. So the next sequence we get, Ross is trying to go after Natasha as an adult, and they're storming this building, thinking that Natasha's in it. I don't know what's wrong with Ross. I'm like, dude, you know who the Avengers are. You're not going to catch Natasha. You're not going to catch her. So it's like she was somewhere completely different. She wasn't even in the United States, bro. That's how far away she was.
Girl in a whole different boat. I was like, when she got the ball, I'm like, you ain't even in the city or in the country. Where the fuck are you? And they're like, oh, she's in a whole different side of the world. And Ross was so certain that she was there. Like, hell, I'll come and get you. No worries, come out. Like, boy, just hang up the phone. You're making yourself look foolish. And she even said that too. And I love how this also sets up a bit more of the Thunderbolts. So I love that in the aspect because we know we're gonna get She-Hulk, and most likely a lot of people have predicted most likely the way he's kind of looking, we're gonna get Red Hulk. So most likely because Ross, the character in the film, I don't know if that's how he is on purpose, but he looked like he's gotten more slimmer over the years. So for those that don't know, the reason he goes into Red Hulk because of his obsession for Hulk, but also because he gets sick. So he tries to figure out a way why not do what Hulk did and do it to himself, and that's why he turns to Red Hulk. So maybe that's what the movie MCU is foreshadowing. For that's why he looks so sick and everything. That's possibly the chance.
I was literally gonna bring that up, and I'm so glad that you did. Cause I'm like, why do you look so sick? Why are you having these triple bypass surgeries? Nah, he's being injected with small doses of the same super soldier serum that was given to Blonsky, I think it's how
Yeah,
his name's
Blonsky.
pronounced.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's injecting himself with that shit, and he's going to turn himself into the Red Hulk. I think exactly what you're thinking. He looks so sick because these are the effects of the super soldier serum. So we've seen in like Civil War and like Falcon and Winter Soldier, whenever we get like flashbacks to the Winter Soldier program, it's kind of what happens when they get injected. They start getting like super cold sweats, they look super sick. So because this is a different version of the serum, that could be why. So I think we're definitely going to get Red Hulk at some point in the future for sure.
I'm curious to see if because the next show we're getting is Hawkeye, and I wonder if that's going to connect more to Ross. And then next year we're getting She-Hulk. So I'm curious to see are we going to see Ross turn to Red Hulk during the series of She-Hulk? Is what I'm curious to see. Like if that's going to be the mid-season, like for example, if they have 6 episodes, is that going to happen in episode 3 or 4, or is that going to happen in the last episode of episode 6? Because we know in She-Hulk we're also going to see her cousin Bruce. So it's an interesting opportunity to show the Thunderbolts and Red Hulk, and if we're gonna see the other Hulk family as well. So that'd be interesting.
Facts, bro. Like I think you hit the nail on the head. I really think that he might get his transformation on the She-Hulk show. I think that would be really dope. Because I mean, there's really no other way there's no other movie for him to do that, right? Unless it's another
There
movie that
isn't.
Hulk is in. This is the perfect opportunity to do that. Because I think, however, his cousin turns into She-Hulk, something around the same lines is going to happen to Ross, and that's what actually triggers him to actually become Red Hulk. But I don't know, just speculating. But
And then
go ahead.
I was doing transition as well. Assist there because right after Algo gets at the boat, she goes to another like to another safe house, and with that safe
Yeah, she
house
goes to
we
Morocco.
meet get to Marco, and we meet do you remember his name?
I believe it was
Uh,
Mason. I
Mason,
believe.
yes, Mason. And when Mason, when he said we have some package for you there, I was like, that package isn't that the same package that her sister in the other type of transition we got with that package? I'm like, okay, her sister mailed this to her, and this is how the story is intertwined with each other, because I felt like that was the most best type of opportunity for her.
Yeah. So her being in Morocco, I like Mason. Mason's a cool character. Like he's really funny. He's that guy that can pretty much get you anything that you need. But I love like this running joke where pretty much everything he provides just kind of fucking falls apart. Like the generator that he gives Natasha just gives out in like 6 hours. I really like that.
Except the Quinjet, because that same Quinjet is the one that Steve Rogers and them used in
Right, but
Infinity
he had
War.
he had he
So
had time for that one.
yeah, that one he had time a while. He had a good week or so. So that one had time.
Yeah, but in the scene with Morocco, we get to see the other Black Widows, and they're going
Yes.
after a former Black Widow who is carrying the antidote that will release the Black Widows from the chemical subjugation. So Yelena goes after the former Black Widow, the former Widow kills her right before she kills her right before the former Widow is able to release the antidote, releasing her from the mind control. And I love that was the MacGuffin of the movie, right? The antidote to free all of the widows. I really
Yeah,
like
of
that
course.
aspect of it, because I was figuring out, if you're going to introduce the widows, like how do you turn them back to your side? And I love that they made it this evolution from psychological subjugation and mind control to chemical mind control, and this is how we combat it. And this is where the Black Widow movie can branch off from here, and how it can still exist like within the MCU, and where like Yelena can pop up and do some other stuff. So I thought that was really cool. So from there, they activate Taskmaster, who goes after Black Widow, and that was sick. What did you think about that?
So Black Widow for going after Natasha and everything. I love how we see the reasoning of how he knows how to fight, or she. Once we find out much later in the film, but we find out because he Taskmaster has been watching the Avengers and other people fight during recording. That's why he knows how to throw the shield. That's why he knows how to fight and combat. And I love how they show us the the type of monitor on his glasses, like seeing the position of how Natasha fights and everything, shoots and does her flips. the most beautiful scene of that fight of Taskmaster and Black Widow was when Black Widow did the jump and twist that she does always with her legs, and then Taskmaster a second later did the same thing. I was like, yo, nice edit, nice scene. I love that. That was beautiful choreography. So much props to that.
Yeah, and correction. So the hideout is in Norway. The scene with Yelena and the other widows were in Morocco. But yeah, I
Ah,
love the Taskmaster fight. I thought that was dope. Same thing like you said. When Black Widow does the kickback and Taskmaster does the same thing. Same thing with the flip. I thought that was really really dope. And this was the moment where I was like, oh shit, this Taskmaster is gonna be dope. Taskmaster is going to be hunting Natasha and Yelena throughout this entire film. It's going to be relentless. Like, they're going to turn Taskmaster into, like, a Terminator. Doesn't fucking happen. And that's pretty much, like, my only negative with this film is that Taskmaster was not used enough at all in this film. But again, I'll defend it because I think, again, you have to view the MCU like a comic book series. Just because you didn't get the amount of this character that you wanted in this issue doesn't mean that we won't get more in the future. Who knows? Maybe Antonia isn't even the real Taskmaster. We might get a different Taskmaster. She might turn into an anti-hero Taskmaster. So we don't know. So I'm not going to put like too much judgment on this version of it because there's still more to come in my eyes.
so let me add to that as well. For those that don't know, comics version of Taskmaster was an agent from Shield that just turned left side, quit, and just turned rogue. That's literally all. That's much about Taskmaster, and Taskmaster is a title. It is given to somebody. So technically, in the MCU, Kevin Feige could do the same thing. That this version of Taskmaster got picked up at the end of the film. They went with the other widows. They don't have to be Taskmaster anymore. Somebody else could take the mantle, and that's it. It's given to somebody else because who else did it recently? Sam Wilson. Falcon became the new Captain America. Somebody else could take the new mantle of Taskmaster and could probably do a better version. This is them doing test and trial, so who knows?
Yeah, man. So it's like I'm not gonna hold too much against the film for that because we'll get to see them again. Like you just said, Sam Wilson just became the new Captain America. Lieutenant Torres, I think is his name, from
Yeah,
Falcon and Winter Soldier. He's
Taurus.
gonna
Yep.
become the new Falcon. We had two Shockers in Spider-Man: Homecoming, so it's like there's always going to be changes to these characters. So if they don't do anything with Taskmaster in the future, sure, I'll be pissed then. But for now, I'll reserve my anger for it because when I said before that Bucky didn't get enough character development because I felt like he didn't get to do anything in Infinity War and Endgame like at all. I felt like Sam didn't get to do much in those two
Oh
movies.
yeah.
Wanda didn't get to do much, besides her major moment at the end of Endgame and a few scenes in between. But it's like these shows and these movies now are giving these like deeper character moments to all of these characters and I love it. Like I love this exploration of what Natasha's like when she's on her own. We've only heard about these days as a spy and as an assassin, but now we get to see her use her connections, how she travels from country to country and stuff like that. So I thought that was really cool.
What I'm also excited to see is that with Taskmaster, again, if it's not her, if it goes to a new man to somebody else, to show up in the movie of Captain America and the Winter Soldier, with because that would be interesting because Taskmaster has fought Captain America before many times, and Taskmaster has fought Spider Man. So if we, I want to see a Spider Man versus Taskmaster in the comics and cartoons. That's always been amazing. For those that have not seen the fights in cartoons, just search up Taskmaster versus Spider Man, and they're entertaining because they're short 2 minutes, but the dialogue and everything. Taskmaster always has a trouble to fight Captain America and Spider Man. Those are the two he always has trouble because they have so much different style, and Taskmaster knows almost as much as Captain America, and it's really entertaining. So I highly suggest. So those are my high expectation. Hopefully, it's Taskmaster's use again. Just give us Captain America versus Taskmaster and Taskmaster versus Spider Man. That's what I want. That's my comic book dream.
Yeah, man. I'm hoping that now that Antonia has her own free will, that she would use her skills to help other people. And again, she can become like Anti-Venom. She can become an anti-hero
Yeah.
as Taskmaster, right? Because we find out later on at the end of the film, in the end credit scene, that Yelena is working for Madame Hydra. and we're going to see Yelena with U.S. Agent. That can be dope. What if Taskmaster is also working with Madam Hydra?
We don't know. So that'd be very interesting.
Yeah, it'd be very, very interesting. So after that fight with Taskmaster, Natasha realizes that Yelena sent her these vials with the antidote. So she goes to Budapest to try to find her. And we get this really cool fight sequence between Natasha and Yelena, which was dope because they both have the same training. But Natasha, she's the best. She's the best widow. So what did you think about that fight sequence between the two?
I love how Yelena said, like, I sent this to you so you can bring the Avengers. I'm like, and then Natasha, like, having seen the news, I'm wanted. How can I bring the Avengers? I'm wanted, like you can bring Tony Stark, Captain America, you couldn't bring anybody else with you. And I just love how, like, she's just so happy to wait, but also, like, she's happy to see her sister, but she's also happy to, like, hey, I was hoping for you to bring the Avengers to help us here because, I was asking for you because you're an Avenger. And I just love the choreography fight between them. And I love how they were both kicking each other's ass like no tomorrow. And then, and then Natasha, like, yo, truce. Because, like, I'm just tired of us throwing, like, each other around here. And what's funny, I was watching it with my brother, and I love how my brother's like, hey, they're humans. They haven't got no cuts on their faces, getting smashed through the windows, smashed to the cabinet. My brother had not seen Fast 9 yet. In my head, I'm like, he has not. You haven't seen Fast and Furious. Trust me, these are spies. So, and there's a comic book film. So I'm like, I give it an edge. I'm like, all right, cool, comic from their spies, their elite training. Their skin is probably made of, probably kryptonite. Who the hell knows? But Fast and Furious, that doesn't make no sense. So, like, when they were throwing each other down to the floor, yeah, sisters, I don't know what the fuck y'all doing, but it was entertaining. It was good editing and good choreography. So overall, the fight was good. I probably would have wanted more, but hey, if they did, they should have gotten some bruises though.
Yeah, I really, really liked the fight. I also loved that moment between Natasha and Yelena where Yelena reveals to Natasha, like, yo, the Red Room is still running. Like, again, instantly, like, I love all of these parallels. It instantly made me think of how Cap must have felt when he found out that Hydra was still standing strong like ever before, right? Everything he fought for, the sacrifices he made, the people that he killed to destroy Hydra, and they were still working. So I love that Natasha gets this moment where she realizes that she sacrificed her humanity by pretty much like thinking that she killed Dreykov's daughter in this explosion, only to find out that Dreykov never stopped. He was perfectly fine and he continued to experiment. As a matter of fact, because Natasha escaped, he was able to make these other widows even stronger in terms of chemically subjugating them.
So the one thing I'd love to note on what you just said, James, she felt double guilt because she saw that Draco double what's the phrase? He went double down on what Natasha did. Like, okay, cool. Natasha went away from the Black Widow, so let me make this type of chemical so they can never escape no more. So he doubled down, and she felt more guilty because she didn't know her sister was still involved. She didn't know that was going on. She's like, oh, and then she felt responsible about her sister. Like, wait a minute, my sister's still going on here, and there's other widows around the world, and I could have stopped this, but like her sister commented on that, like, oh, I'm an Avenger and not this. So she felt like guilt, but since she felt like she was doing something more, helping the bigger fight. And I like what Draco said at the end, that he fights the wars in the shadows. And there's always, when he said that line, it reminds me of any Mission Impossible, any type of spy film, because there's always a war in public, but there's always a war in the shadows that nobody sees. So I love that very much too.
Yeah. On the topic of Dreykov's daughter, real quick. So 2 years ago, when they first announced Black Widow, we found out who the cast was. I was like, Rachel Weisz is fucking Taskmaster. Every time in these MCU movies, it's always tied around like family. It's always like the antagonist always cuts deep to home, right? I was like, it's gonna be Melina. They're not gonna make Melina Iron Maiden. They're gonna switch it up. They're gonna make Melina Taskmaster. I was gonna put money on it. I would have bet anyone that it was Rachel Weisz. Anyone. But it wasn't until I started watching the film and they kept talking about Dreykov's daughter. And I'm like, it's fucking Dreykov's daughter. Son of a bitch. It's Dreykov's daughter. Hold on. So they essentially pulled like a Shao Tucker, right? Because that's immediately what I thought of when I saw Dreykov's daughter. I was like, they kept fucking talking about this. So when I did my Black Widow spoilers, no context, I put that in there because it's like, you have this terrible guy who took his daughter, experimented on her, changed her, modified her to become the perfect weapon because Natasha got away, right? So I thought that was really, really fucked up, and it made me instantly think of Shao Tucker.
I highly agree. It was messed up. I just didn't like that. You could have just said that was his daughter. What bothered me, like, this just a very comic book nitpick, because for those that don't know, in the comics, Taskmaster never removes his helmet, never removes his mask. So once he shows that's my daughter, I'm like, and then once she removes the mask, I'm like, why Taskmaster don't? But I'm like, hey, this is MCU. This is like a whole different type of universe, so I cannot get mad about it. But it just irked me for a millisecond. But like at the end of the day, this is not the character. There'll always be a different mantle. But for what he did, I'm like, so you did this for revenge because Black Widow, aka Natasha Romanoff, blew up your daughter, but you want to revenge her, so you took her free will and then brainwashed her. I hope you know you're a messed up father. But he sounded very proud of what he did. He sounded very proud father for what he did, though.
Yeah, like Almighty's saying right now, right? Like, yeah, she blew up in an explosion. You would definitely do experiments to save her life. But then to turn her into an ultimate weapon, like why would you do that? And it just shows like how evil he is, that he would even do this to his own child. Like that's how fucked up and how evil this guy is. And he's absolutely despicable in everything that he does, especially in this next moment, right? Because Yelena and Natasha are fighting against these widows, and then one of them, she breaks her leg, and then Dreykov hits the button and makes her kill herself. I thought that was really, really fucked up. Like, that was one of the darker things that I think we've seen in the MCU, that someone was forced to commit suicide. Like, that was crazy.
I felt so bad. Pia Natasha felt more guilt at that moment. Like, she was trying to save her. She's like, hey, everything's going to be all right. I'm going to come help you. I'm good. And then the more closer she got is when she killed herself. And then Natasha was like that's when she came with the whole realization, like, oh my God, the Black Widow program is really still going on and somebody's controlling. Like, that's when she realized, yo, my sister Yelena's telling the truth. Like, this literally happened right in front of her. So she felt the guilt and she felt responsible. And that's what it felt very heavy for her too.
Yeah, man. And like when you said about like Taskmaster not taking off the helmet, I think that was for Natasha, right? Because it was for Natasha to see the face of her victim, right? That was for her development. You know what I mean? Like, look at the face of the person that you sacrificed and know that she's still alive. And the reason why she's in this position today is because of what you did. So that was for Natasha's development. But I'm definitely with you. Like, there are some moments where I'm like, just leave the mask on. Just don't take it off.
Me too.
You know what I mean?
It's just like, just leave it. We don't care. Just say that this is a daughter, and just maybe you show a picture on a hologram that this is how she looks so ugly. That's it. Don't take the mask off. Like, I'm like, don't need to. And what got me upset is, like, when you see the shots behind of the Taskmaster had a hood there, right? It barely ever had the hood on. I'm like, so what's the point of the design of the hood if you're never gonna wear it? The hood means supposed to wear it. I was so bothered by that. I'm like, no.
I was also bugged by the design. I'm like, the helmet, you could have just made it the Taskmaster helmet. It wouldn't have been that big a deal. Just make it the original design. But again, this is why I'm thinking that this is just the first Taskmaster that we'll see, and we'll actually get the real Taskmaster later on, or some other iteration of Antonia as Taskmaster. So Yelena and Natasha get away. They're in this convenience store and they're just open, like casually talking about being assassins in front of the cashier. I'm like, I don't know if he doesn't speak English and that's why he's not paying attention, but they're just openly talking about them being assassins. And then Yelena's talking to Natasha about the superhero landing. I think that's fucking hilarious.
That was my favorite moment of the whole film, because in Deadpool he made fun of it, like the whole the whole super landing, but telling Natasha, because it's been an ongoing thing throughout the years of the films that she always, when she lands, she always does a pose, little sexy pose, and get ready. And I love how Yelena poses too, like something like this, like the leg out over there. Like, why do you do that? Like, I love that conversation because it felt so human. It felt like actual sister, like it felt like a conversation I had with my brother. It felt like something like, hey, bro, question, why do you always have your leg up when you sleep, or something like that? And just seeing Yelena just comment like, that must mean Yelena actually watches her sister like on the TV or do some superhero stuff. So that shows that she cares about her sister and seeing her over the years as an Avengers, but also acknowledges that she observed her. And I love how later in the film they call back to that, and she tries to falls down from the vent and does the pose, and she's like, that's just weird. I'm like, I can't do that. I'm like, this was great writing for us, the audience, and for them as characters, because Natasha even said like, I don't know, it just feels good. Like, she said something like that, in those lines, and it was just good comedy. It felt natural. It didn't feel forced. So I love that very much. And I do agree, James. The guy was just literally listening conversation of two assassins with blood and just grabbing food, and he's like, oh, okay, just cashier. Okay, that's it. Cool. I'm like, my dude, you're not gonna call the cops? You don't see a TV? They're wanted. Natasha's an Avengers here. Come on.
Yeah, I also feel like that was very fourth wall breaking as well. Like just making fun of the superhero poses that everyone does. And Yelena says something along the lines of like, it's almost like someone's watching you, because that's the wink to the audience, because we are watching them. So I thought that was really funny.
Like, it was good comedy, and I like we all like the poses. Thor does it. Like, for example, I love in the What If in the first Avengers when they do the pose of the first Avengers of all of them in Times Square, and she's shown that technically when Yelena spoke about superhero pose and when she said that everyone's watching, that reminded me, because technically all of them did a pose, but imagine if those cameras are not there and you just regular people just waiting for those heroes to save you, and you just watch it like, why are they just standing there and looking at the sky? Can you guys start doing some work? That's what I would have said a comment. I'm like, hey, Hulk, start smashing. Some buildings are falling.
Like, I love that entire sequence between them. Like, it's so funny. Like, Scarlett Johansson and Florence Pugh play so well off of each other. They're such amazing actresses. And again, like, the next moment where they're just drinking beers together, catching up, just talking to each other. That was such a great moment between sisters, between people. And I love it when the MCU grounds these characters. And I feel like this is something that the MCU should definitely do going forward, which is further humanizing these characters, because it's very easy to just look at them as superheroes and like look at them as just these great comic book heroes that we see from the comics, but they're people too. They also make mistakes. Natasha also feels guilt for actually never looking for her sister for all of these years. She joined S.H.I.E.L.D., she tried to turn her life around, and she just completely ignored everything in her past, including her own sister. So I love that they brought that up and they didn't shy away from it. She completely turned her back on her sister. Even though she tells herself that they weren't really sisters, they have a bond together. So what did you think about that?
I love that type of commentary, because I like now not all siblings, not all families perfect. Each family has their own type of dynamics, each their own flaws. And I love how Yelena was younger and said like later in the dinner table, said like, this felt like family. This 3 years still like, you was my mom. You're the closest thing to mama. And like, I felt that. And like, I was emotional for that moment. Maybe not throughout the whole film because each person get their own scenes that they get attached to, and that to me, like when I speak about emotional aspect throughout the film, with the dinner table with all four of them talking and each of them giving their highs and lows as being assassins, spies, and as a family as being fake one. That was my favorite because it reminded me when Yelena and Natasha just were drinking a beer and just talking themselves because it felt like two sisters just letting out their baggage. Like, hey, it's been years. Let's talk this shit. Why do you leave me? Why do you never look for me? And then her saying, I was trying to let my past go. My past was shit. You know this very well. And I became a ranger. Things happen so fast. So I felt like that was a beautiful scene that anybody through a family has gone through or can go through. So I love that very much too.
Yeah, man. Again, they play off of each other so well, and they truly feel like sisters. And then they truly bond after all of these years. And it's like, yeah, let's put a plan together. We're gonna go after Dreykov together. Who do we think will know where Dreykov is? Alexei. So they get in touch with Mason. Mason gets them this completely rundown, like piece of shit helicopter from who knows how old that fucking helicopter is. And then they head to Russia, where they tried to do a prison break with Red Guardian. What did you think about this sequence, bro? Because I thought this is awesome.
Yo, I love how he just kept. This felt like Mother Russia, like we've seen in movies and everything. Like every time we see Russia, we see people in a prison cell fighting and always doing arm wrestling and getting that tattoo at the same time. I don't know what's with Russia always getting tattoos while you're in jail. I don't know what's with that. And my dude just continued knocking out. And then a big dude, a much bigger dude than Alexis there. Then he said, hey, and what year this happened? Oh, 1995. That's weird because Captain America was, still frozen solid. And I'm like, so you calling me liar? And then my dude just
Like,
breaks his
yeah,
whole
fool.
wrist. Like, no shit is lying, but don't tell him you're lying because he's a fucking super soldier. He will whip your ass no matter how big you are. I'm like, man, you better get your hand broken. And then a second later, I said down my head, he got his hand broken. Like, And then I love the whole prison break aspect because it shows that he's a super soldier, but he has not been athletic to do super soldier stuff. Because
Yeah,
when
you
he tries
still
to
gotta
go
work
up
out.
he still got to work out. And when he tries to go up the, up the cliff and everything, go up just to go higher to go on the helicopter and everything, my man fall twice. He's like, I can't get up. I need some help. It just shows that, like, Natasha and Yelena, like, do we really have to get him? Like, he's just there. Like, they feel so disappointed trying to get him because of, like, how you're a super soldier and you need help from us. So I just love that very much. And the way Natasha did her pose
It was
jumping
so
out from
sick.
there, and then Yelena like
Such a
poser.
poser.
So I love that. Like, it's just so natural to feel like, again, I had low expectation of this film, but it was pure entertainment. Like, I had a good time. It's not something, again, it's not some Oscar or big Avengers team up. It's just an origin story of a family that is really messed up and dysfunctional. That's all.
Yeah, man. Like, I love this entire prison break sequence. I love that the earpiece is inside of this Red Guardian action figure. Absolutely love that. When Yelena shoots the rocket after the gunner and it causes the huge avalanche, thought that was dope. But yeah, like you said, the superhero landing, I thought it was dope, man. Like, you live for those moments as a comic book fan, man. You live for those moments.
And plus, you know yourself, if you're a hero, you want to do superhero landing pose. That's so cool. Like, if you see 20,000 people watching you and you're about to land, you want to do some cool entrance. Like, no matter what, yeah, you could just walk in, but if you want to do some dope landing because people will clap, you'll get attention. That's something you love and enjoy. And when she did the bazooka and everything, when she did the launcher, girl was mad because girl was getting shy and everything. She's like, you know what? I'm gonna just put this in autopilot real quick and just launch it. I'm like, she dead ass got so mad and said, you know what? I'm gonna just blow up the tower. Boom. I'm like, I see that. I see. You got really pissed off.
Yeah, man, I love this entire sequence. Like, Scarlet looks like a complete badass the entire time. The avalanche is coming. She grabs Alexei. They're in the helicopter, and they're trying to get information from him. But all he really cares about is his glory days. Like, he doesn't even get like, yo, we haven't seen you in 20 years and all you want to do is talk about your glory days and how the 3 years that you spent with us didn't mean anything to you, even though we know deep down it did. So it was just like, it was great to see, again, this family dynamic, man, because family, you don't get along all the time. Like, we have disputes, we don't always get along, so I felt like all of that felt natural. It felt like they were an actual family.
My favorite part of that is when it just felt so natural of him trying to be a dad, but he felt more like the drunk uncle, like like the one that
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
like the one that does not be taken seriously in the conversation. Because when both of them were wearing the headphones, and when he came on the helicopter and him trying to talk and speak, you're like, oh, you get the headphones. Hey guys, hey, how you guys doing? Everything doing good? You're like, hey, can you? We're trying to go kill Jacob and everything. Here's your partner. Like, hey, but you guys don't want to talk about what happened. I did 20 years ago and everything. Like, I just love how the conversation again, like what you mentioned, James. It felt so natural, like a natural family that has their problems, but as much as what it is, they still love each other in some type of messed up way.
Yeah, man. Like, I love that scene. Thought it was absolutely hilarious. And then they realized that, yo, maybe we need to go see Melina. Melina is still working for the Red Room. She works closely with Dreykov, so let's go find her. So in the helicopter, they head towards St. Petersburg. Yelena's telling everyone, like, yo, we're not gonna last on the fuel that we got, bro. Like, it's not gonna happen.
I love how he said, "Hey, no worries, we'll go to the gas." I love how they show us when the helicopter just literally falls down, and and then she tells like, "Told you it would not survive," and they just have to walk to her and everything like that. Like, yeah, we have a good enough gas and everything just to reach over them. Like, ah, when dads and parents say we're good enough, but then just don't listen. It's just amazing, and it just shows that our girl Melena, when it shows that she's a scientist, but knowing that she did this type of experiment and she's the one that told the pigs, like when she told the pig to stop breathing, that's some messed up
That was
shit.
horrifying,
And
man.
when Natasha and when Yelena said like, "Can you let the pig breathe?" and everything, oh, it could last for another 5 seconds. Like, no, that don't matter. Let the pig breathe. Like, I felt bad for the pig. Like in my head, I was like, is she gonna turn on? Is MC not gonna let the pig breathe? Are we about to lose a pig right here in the movie? Like, I care about the pig for a second. Like, the pig was like, just losing breath. I was like, damn, pig don't die.
Yeah, that was legit hard to watch. It's like, Melina, like, the fuck, what are you doing? You know what I mean? But it was also to show that kind of cold side to Melina, that kind of just like leaned into the purpose that she was given by Dreykov, right? And I love that conversation between her and Natasha, where she realizes that, yeah, you were born in a cage, but that doesn't mean that you have to live in it. You can break out. Like, you shine bright. You can break out of this cage. You know what I mean? So I love that conversation between them. I love the conversation with them sitting around the table. And they instantly felt like a family again. Like, they haven't seen each other in 20 years, but they felt like this family fighting each other. I love when Yelena and Alexei are in the room talking to each other, and Yelena mentions that he only wants to talk about the glory days as the Crimson Dynamo. For those of you that are comic book fans, you will know that the Crimson Dynamo is Anton Vanko in the comics. Anton Vanko, father of Ivan Vanko, who was Whiplash in Iron Man 2. So I love like how many different things within the MCU kind of converge inside of Black Widow. I thought that was dope.
The most funny shit is that this man stepped out on the dinner table, went to the bathroom, and put on his whole suit. The way they did the zoom shots and showing him struggling, my man was literally going like, like my man was struggling with that gut and everything. I'm like, yo, you dead as doing this, and like we saw it in the trailer and everything, but seeing full context of this man coming at the bathroom with confidence. When I speak, this man had confidence coming like, hey, it still fits. I'm like, my dude, it doesn't fit. If you had to struggle that much, that should have told you. It does not fucking fit. He was like, he had more confidence than me trying to pull a size shorts that fit me 2 years ago, and I know it doesn't. But I've been struggling. I'm like, you know what? I'm good. It doesn't fit me. He
Edlin's
did not
totally
give
right
up,
too.
and that
This
was
was
determination.
This was definitely like a Mr. Incredible moment with him trying to fit into his
Yes,
suit again. I thought that was hilarious,
but
bro. He
he
comes
actually
out.
fit it.
Yeah, he comes out in the suit. He sits at the dinner table and he's looking at Melina. He's like, "Yo, you look just as good as you did 20 years ago." And he's like, "I've been in prison a long time. I have lots of energy." And then like how Natasha and Yelena reacted to it. It's like, "Mom, Dad, stop! Like I don't want to hear about you having sex." Like, I just love the family dynamic in this film.
And again, to bring over what I didn't mention earlier, when the father and the mom, when they both said this was a mission, it's cute to have our girls back and everything. But when the mom was like, hey, like a mission's a mission, those 3 years wasn't really a big deal. And she was being really cold about it. And then when Yelena throughout the whole time was quiet, but then she started to get emotional about it because Natasha started to be like, yeah, I was a widow and then went to Avengers. And then when the mother said, oh, I did this chemical experiment. And then when Yelena asked, do you know who you did it to? I was one of them. I was one of them. Got my brain washed. And then I finally got an attitude by accident and my memories were stolen. And then when she mentioned that you was my mother for 3 years, you was my friend, you were my sister for those 3 years, and she said that it felt so real for her. Like I felt, not like tears, crying, but I felt the emotional from the actress, from Florence View. It was hitting me, and I felt the emotion that she's screaming to the audience, telling her how emotion felt. And then when she left, closed the door to the room, like any type of person that's emotional and everything. And then when the father came in and everything, it felt so natural, like a family that's really messed up and has a dysfunctional type of family. And it felt that. How do you feel about that, James?
Yeah, man, same. Especially when Natasha grabs the photo album that Melina told her to leave behind 20 years ago. So it just shows that 20 years ago she couldn't even leave those memories behind because she cared so much about those kids, and even though it was fake, it was very real to her. At the beginning again, when Alexei comes home and he tells her that it's time, and Melina's like, I don't want to, right? Because she was so ingrained into this family. And I feel like when that family was stripped away from her, it could have potentially made her even colder, because it's like within this line of work, I can't afford to get that close to anyone ever again, right? Which is probably why she doesn't even work with people anymore, and her job is focusing on like the chemical subjugation aspect part of it. But she tells Natasha that she already called the Red Room, she called Dreykov, and then we get the standoff with the Widows. I was expecting to see more Taskmaster, but Taskmaster doesn't fucking do anything in the scene, like at all.
Before coming in, that I just noticed with, with what Nova said, you're an idiot and you're a coward. That hit hard too. I agree with what Nova said
Facts, bro.
because not a lot of people could try to act all macho, but deep down, some people are just a coward, and that's why they act so macho to kind of lie about how really deep down there, like he talks about his glory days, but his glory days was so short lived that he doesn't really have much of it. That's why he talks so highly of it. And I love how Natasha and plus Yanela spoke about that, and he feels very responsible. And I love that scene when he thought he was speaking to Natasha in the cell much later after, and he let his heart out, he let his emotion out, and he said it to Natasha like, hey, I'm sorry, could have been a better father, it was so short and everything. And I'm like, damn, like it hit him hard or what they mentioned at the dinner table and what they mentioned before, that you're a coward and everything, you're an idiot. And he felt responsible, like, that he felt like he could have been better. And then when Natasha was like, hey, you have something to tell me, like, yeah, it's just not the same. I can't do it no more. So I felt that very much, like seeing that he felt like responsible as a father figure, as a parent figure. So I love that very much as well. And to answer to what James said, Taskmaster could have done something, but to show the comedy aspect, that Red Guardian had to get, I think, almost 20 shots for
That
him to
was
go to
so
sleep,
funny.
because again, super soldier. So it makes sense that I'm glad they knew, because like when he got one, I'm like, I think I need to show like 5, 6 more.
Yeah,
But when
yeah.
they kept going like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 20, I'm like, okay, y'all went probably overboard, but it makes sense. He's a super soldier, so yeah, so he can knock out. Totally get it.
Yeah. Almighty, I was also kind of confused as to like what Red Guardian was talking about because he made it seem like he did have some kind of interaction with Cap. And I mean, he could have maybe in the 40s. I'm not sure because it's really not clear in the movie at all. You know what I mean? Because he would definitely still be alive with the super soldier serum. It drastically slows your aging. So he could have technically been alive, but I don't think that's the case because he would have looked a lot older. Look at Isaiah Bradley, right? Yes, Isaiah Bradley was a lot older than Steve in like the 40s and 50s, but look at how old he is now compared to Alexei. So I don't know. I think he's just all cap. I think he's just all bullshit. Like, what do you think?
So my assumption for chat, what you guys are saying, that in Almighty and Chief and everybody that acts in the chat, from my understanding, I think MCU was pointing from the comics because they have actually fought in the comics. So I feel like they was just telling the audience like an Easter egg. I don't feel like it's probably timeline probably connected that Red Guardian that actually did fight Captain America, or maybe he did, or fought a version like Isaiah Bradley. Maybe he fought Isaiah Bradley and he felt like he was Captain America. Maybe he took that as his W. We don't know that. We don't know the full timeline or full
The
context of the
see,
information.
I think he's talking about Steve. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I think he's talking
No,
about
of course.
Steve because he's talking to Natasha directly and he's asking Natasha, has he ever mentioned me? The only
Mention
Captain
me. Yeah,
America
you're
that she
right.
knows is Steve Rogers. So it's like, it had to be Steve, you know? But I mean, he could have fought multiple ones, but I mean, based on that context, he had to have been talking about Steve.
That is true because for her, because on the first interaction, he did ask her like, "Hey, did Cap ever talk about me?" And that's when Natasha said like, "You always think about yourself. It's been 20 years, and you don't know anything about us, but you care about your glory days." Yeah, you're right. So he must have been talking about Steve Rogers, Captain America, but we don't know the timeline. Correction, maybe again, it could have been an Easter egg from us, the audience, about the comics. But then, what was the point of him asking Natasha? So maybe they did. We don't know the full timeline. Correction. So who knows? Maybe in a few months, Kevin Feige will be like, "Yes, they did fight. We just don't have the full context." So maybe in some type of interview, we will know more type of information.
Yeah, because I mean, there are dozens of versions of this super soldier serum, so we don't know all of the different effects. Like, look at like Black Cat, and I forget like what Black Cat's original team was called, but whenever they put on their costumes, that's how they were able to use like their super soldier abilities. So there's so many different forms. Maybe the one that Red Guardian got, like kept him looking younger longer. We really don't know. Don't want to spend too much time talking about it, but it's definitely interesting to think about. But the next scene, they wake up in their cells. We're in the Red Room in this floating city, and instantly I thought, how did Senator Ross, the Accords, the government really not know anything about Dreykov and the Red Room? Like, how is Dreykov so connected that even with the technology that Ross has, that they went completely undetected for over 20 years? Like, what did you think about that?
So, for my guess, from what he said, that he moves within the clouds all over the world, and that's why they never be found. But I'm like, all right, cool. You're in the clouds, higher type of atmosphere. But I'm like, but wasn't there three type of helicarriers back then
Yeah,
that
you're
goes
still
within around
below
the world too? So
satellites.
I'm like, don't you guys cross or see something in the radar? Shield helicarrier. So it makes those type of loopholes. But I'm like, but also he said he never did big enough damage or big enough havoc to cause the Black Widows or himself, Dreykov, inside the radar of the government or within the type of Avengers or Ross. Because he even said this, like how Natasha asked, how do you never get caught? He said that I never did something so big or something between those lines. He said that he never did something so big to get caught by the Avengers or catch people in the radar. I'm like, all right, cool. And also you're within clouds. You have a little cloud system there. Who knows? So I'm like, okay, I guess I'll let that pass by. Sure.
Yeah, and I feel like it's like what Yelena said, like when Yelena was talking about shit, what did you, can you just repeat what you just said? I lost my train of thought.
Of how they kept moving around the world and they never get caught because they don't do nothing so big to cause
Right, 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 right.
any type of
Yelena.
attention from the Avengers or Ross.
Right, yeah. So Yelena also mentions to Natasha, like, yeah, I mean, he never did anything. He never came after you because if you kill an Avenger, everyone else is going to show up to
That too.
avenge. Right, so I thought that was also a cool little callback to that as well. What did you think about the fight between Red Guardian and Taskmaster? Because this was yet another moment where I was extremely underwhelmed because we only cut to this fight sometimes, and it's like, yes, in the moment Taskmaster was fighting like Black Panther, Cap, and Winter Soldier all at the same time. I did think that was really, really cool, but that fight didn't last long enough, and like it just wasn't good either. Like, I don't feel like Red Guardian put up that much of a fight. Like, what did you think about that fight sequence?
So throughout the whole film, that's my least underwhelming fight. And that's disappointing because you have a super soldier and you have a almost AI type of robot slash type of Terminator that could kind of predict what you're gonna do and counter it. And I felt like that should have been more choreographed and that should not have been cut back to any of the story. That should have been a main focus of a good 2 minute fight of showing us different action sequence between Red Guardian and Taskmaster. That's what I felt like should have been the main focus for those 2 minutes of them fighting. And then after Taskmaster lost or Red Guardian, one or the other, then boom, go back to Natasha and everything else. But we didn't really get that. We just showed 10, 20 seconds here and then go back. And then 10 seconds here, then go back. I felt like that took away from us because we were seeing people talk and then action. People talk, then action. But we know that Taskmaster was kind of like one of the main villain, but it didn't really do too much. It felt very underwhelming. So with that fight against Red Guardian, you was fighting a super soldier. Like we want to see an actual fight, like a Captain America and Tony Stark has fought before, and that was a good action sequence. So that's what I was hoping to see. Something similar. Yes, that's Red Guardian is a bit much older, but we could have gotten that.
Yeah, I agree completely, man. And Merc brings up a really good point, but I think it can be explained maybe. But Merc brings up, like, why didn't Project Insight show Dracoff or like any of the people within his organization? And the only thing I can say that maybe the reason why Project Insight didn't pick them up is because even Hydra thought that Dracoff was dead. Even Hydra thought that Dracoff and the Red Room was no more. So the algorithm couldn't have picked them up because he didn't really have like a trail. That's the only thing I can say, because even to Hydra he was dead. But I don't know. What do you think, Vash?
I feel like with that, he even said that he kept himself secluded. He has like he's up in the sky. Maybe his internet, his satellite, his sources. Nobody knows what he does or does. Like it's just only a certain amount of people. So that's my assumption. Like why nobody knows what he's doing, and that's why he never got caught with the government, with Hydra, and they didn't know what the Winter Soldier anything in that realm. That's just my assumption.
Yeah, it's just I felt like that could have been touched on a little bit more, but the film is already over 2 hours. I guess you didn't want to waste any more time with that. But I love the sequence between Natasha and Dracoff. It's very much the parallel of Natasha and Loki from the first Avengers film, where she pushes him and pushes his buttons, makes him get physical so that he can like break her nose so that she can block the effects of the pheromones. I love this because this is what spies do. They infiltrate, they make people talk to give them the information that they need. That's how she knew how to find the other widows. That's how she knew how to activate the console. She did all of this spy shit. I absolutely love that sequence. And I love that she was egging on Dracoff, like, you're not even strong enough to break my nose. You're so weak, so pathetic. When was the last time you had a conversation with someone that and you didn't have to control them? I love the way she was able to push his buttons for him to do exactly what she wanted. And that's how fucking badass Black Widow is.
Why do evil villains never learn? Just shut the fuck and kill the person.
Exactly.
It's like
Stop
my dude,
talking.
it's like it's like if I was an evil villain, I would have you and tell you and show you my ring, show you how I pass, and show you my whole widow program. And where the fuck do I have this 120 people around the world and everything? No, I wouldn't do that. Because just in case you might survive, you're an assassin, you're a spy, you know how to infiltrate. Just in case you know how to get around me, let me not show you this. But no, show the ring finger, show the 120 type of Black Widow spies around the world. I'm like, my
That was so
guy,
messed up.
you're an evil guy. How this is so simple, but you're supposed to be the evil mastermind, but somehow you get caught. And I love I love that comment that you said, James, of how she said, I I guess you didn't hit me hard enough. How can I finish this myself? And she literally just hit headbutt to the table. I didn't expect that. I'm like, oh shit. Oh, girl that has broke her nose. And then after the widows did a whole jump of you know lie, the jump that those widows of 10, 12 widows did remind me about JJK when Yuji implemented Nami
Yeah, yeah.
jump on
I can't remember the
I
name
can't
right
remember his
now.
name, damn. Yeah, Stash Face. And I just reminded me like, yeah, jump this man. And me in my head, I'm like, jump Natasha, like that. Girl's gonna jump right now. And then right after she get out, girl just totally fixes her nose like it's nothing. Like, yes, of course I know it's fake energy in production, but knowing the way she does it, her and her body language, knowing that she shows it's real, it still like, damn, that shit must hurt. But you know, no, he's
Yeah.
faking it, but still like done well, knowing that the acting that's the most important. So because it shows us the audience like, ow, that fucking hurts. But wow, damn.
Yeah, man, and I love that fight sequence with Natasha against all of the widows. She was kicking a bunch of ass, but they also showed the
She
widows
was.
beating the shit out of her. Like, if Yelena didn't show up, I'm not sure how that fight would have ended up. But Yelena shows up, she blows up the antidote so everyone can inhale it, and all of the widows on the ship get free. And I love this moment because again, like all of these women are in the sunken place. They haven't had control of their own minds, of their own bodies for who knows how many years. So to see them free, to see them helping Natasha, helping Yelena, like I thought that was really really dope. So the red room starts to fall. It's starting to blow up and fall apart and everything like that. And Natasha goes after Antonia. What did you think about that?
I love what Mercenary brings up. Draco walked away from the hero and left her like a Bond villain. Because
Yeah.
I'm like, every villain does this. Like,
Every
hey,
villain.
you know, you guys finish her off while I go and escape. I'm like, no, just shoot her in the head. Why you want to let the goons? They always escape. The hero always escape. It's just like in Fast and Furious when she even brought up if this was a hero movie, this would be the turning point of you losing. My man was at the losing point. Like, why you leaving? Just put the gun to the head and just kill Natasha. But no, he just walks out. Hey, you know, just let them escape. To, to let them fight. And James, no lie, I dead as thought Natasha was gonna lose against 1 versus 12. I think I assume that's how many there were because those
Yeah, that was
12
more
was
than
give her
12,
the
bro.
hands. I'm like, yo, I, I'm like, yo, Natasha, like Natasha was winning and then losing and then winning and then losing. Like girl was just getting hit to the wall and like well Yelena threw the cure. I'm like, okay, I hope you kept two. Somehow all of them blew up except two. I'm like, I guess two of them didn't blow up. Okay, I guess that
Well,
counts.
she kept
But
two.
it just made sense. Oh, should they keep two?
Yeah, she kept two because they know that they had to at least have one to synthesize more of the antidote for later on. So she took out two
Oh,
of
okay.
them. She took out two of them, used one, used the rest of them on the widows, and then one was used on Antonia, and then there's one more.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. But the way the red room was getting blown up and everything, and I love how Guardian and the Millennium and them were escaping and everything. So it made total sense with how the red room was gonna explode, and it made sense that Jacob was gonna escape. But I love how our girl Yelena was actually trying to sacrifice herself.
Yeah.
Because this was her goal. This was her goal to take out the widows and, and have them free, have them back their freedom of will. But also was to kill Jacob. All right, cool. But then when she said, boom, blow up, and then she just falling. I'm like, just go and run for it. All right, cool. Natasha goes and jumps for it. But the Taskmaster comes and like, "Aye, you are determined, Taskmaster. This is your mission." Aye, cool. And then chases, and then that action flying high type of sequence. It reminded me again from a Mission Impossible. So I'm like, this felt so much like a spy movie, which was what I wanted.
Yeah,
So I
she's a
was
spy,
also
man.
satisfied for that reason as well.
Yeah, man, I absolutely love that sequence, but again, like I wanted more, right? I just wanted more of that fight. I loved watching Natasha grab that parachute and just jumping off of the carrier like nothing to grab Yelena to save her, and then just fighting with Antonia in the air until they fall to the ground, and then that hand-to-hand combat. Like I love that entire sequence. And another thing that I liked about that was her releasing Antonia, and you can see in Antonia's face this sense of relief. She's relieved that her father is dead. Like, can you imagine what he did to her for her to feel those emotions? She's like, is he gone? You know what I mean? So she's finally free. And I feel like the actress did a really good job during the reveal to Natasha of who she really was, because Dreykov was talking to her, and you can see that her emotions are trying to come out, but the inhibitors are stopping her from doing that. So I thought the actress did a really good job of emoting her feelings without saying anything. So her being finally free at the end, like I felt that relief from her. What about you?
I I saw that coming because they were fighting. I'm like, cool. Most likely Taskmaster gonna lose because we know Natasha has to escape because this is gonna connect to Steve Rogers and everything else. So most likely Natasha's gonna escape and Taskmaster's gonna lose. But then when she get the cure and when the daughter says she gone, I mean, is she gone? I felt that sadness for her because like how sick in the head, like she's your daughter. Cool, you try to save her, but then to turn her into an assassin, not even cure your daughter with all this technology you have, with all this resource you have to cure your daughter from the explosion, but you turn her into an assassin, a killing machine. Maybe understandable if your daughter wanted to kill Natasha because of the blow up explosion, but no, you control your daughter and then you have her not have no free of will, and then her saying, "Hey, is my father dead?" Like the relief and knowing that she goes with Yelena and with the other Black Widows, like she felt some relief. We don't know what's her next story. Is she going to be back in MCU? Who knows? But I do want to ask you a question, James. Do you like vests? And do you like vests with jackets and pockets?
I do, sir. I also love
How do you
cargo
feel about
shorts with
them?
lots of
Would you want
pockets.
one?
I do want one. I love that that was a thing in this movie because it explains how Natasha got that vest in Infinity War. I absolutely love
I
that.
one I wonder if they planned that, and if they planned that, that was planned so
Nah,
well
I doubt it.
because it made sense. Because if that jacket was actually planned from Infinity War to the Black Widow, I'm like, okay, that's and also that's one perfectly clean vest I've ever seen that stays
Right.
black. Like it did not lose the color, nothing. So I'm like, it's pretty dope. And I do agree as well. I love jackets, vests that has pockets, and cargo pants. You will always see me in cargo pants in the summer because I love them. As
Yeah, I
extra
gotta have
pockets
a
are
lot of
always good,
pockets,
guys.
man. Yeah.
The I love how that was. I love how those two jokes, the poses and the jacket with pockets, was a continuous joke throughout the film with the sisters. And I love how her sisters, hey, here's a jacket for you. You can have this vest with the pockets. You just go to the pockets. And then we see her at the end of the film with the highlight hair, and then we're like, oh, this is the same type of outfit she was in Infinity War. So I love with all those type of connections. It's very beautiful and very homage with the storyline. Like you said, Jess, maybe they didn't really plan this, but with such a good storyline that they put in the continuity, just like saying the kid in that is like the kid in Iron Man 2 is actually, Peter Parker. I'm like, okay, cool. You guys added those little small things throughout the years, seeing that. So maybe they really didn't plan this, but them planting this now, those little seeds, it just makes it more adorable, showing that how much work and details they put in the film.
Yeah, man. And I like you just said, like I love how they explain how they got the Quinjet, right? Because it's like, where did you get this from? Like, after Steve breaks Sam out of prison, where did they get this magical Quinjet from? So I love how they explain that. I kind of wish that I got to see how Natasha got away from Ross and all of those agents again, but it doesn't matter because we know that she's going to escape, you know? So I really, really love that. I love that we're going to essentially at some point get to see Yelena and the other widows freeing the other widows around the world. I feel like it would be a huge missed opportunity if Kevin Feige didn't take advantage of this and turn it into a TV series. Like I said at the beginning, 4 or 5 episodes of just Yelena, Melina, Alexei, and some of the other widows going around the world saving some of the other widows. I think that would be dope. But I want to talk about the end credit scene. Right? We get to the end credit scene. Yelena shows up to the grave. It almost got me, man. I almost got choked up when she starts whistling and there is no response because her sister's dead. Like, it hit me so hard. And it's like her tombstone, her grave is back in Ohio, where she never wanted to leave in the first place. Absolutely loved that, man. Almost brought me to tears. It was amazing.
It brought me to tears good. In a good way, because I thought that type of emotional aspect and with how Yelena and everything. And for those that don't know, this film was supposed to come out last year, so this was always the end credit scene. This was not a new end credit scene. This was done already
Right. So
before
this
Captain
would have
Winter
been the
Soldier,
first time that we
before
would have
WandaVision,
seen Madam Hydra.
Madam Hydra. So yeah, for in case people thought like there's a new credit scene because with Falcon the Winter Soldier, with what happened there with Madam Hydra and U.S. agent, this was the first end credit scene, and we technically would have seen Madam Hydra there first. That's why they never mention her name, and we find her later in Falcon the Winter Soldier. But with this scene, it was adorable seeing her sister and everything. But the question that we are about to ask to the audience to chat and let us know, and that we're about to discuss. When Madam Hydra said, "I have a proposition for you, for the killer, for your sister, Natasha," and she shows the picture Hawkeye, aka Ronin, because that's the Alpha Ronin. I don't know what to say because when I first saw it, I'm like, Yelena, you better not be stupid to actually believe her to say that Hawkeye's the one that murdered your sister. I don't know how well Yelena knows about Hawkeye, but you must see this guy and be like, oh, this is Hawkeye from the Avengers. Why would she want to kill him? Like, technically, Hawkeye was the one that's going to technically sacrifice himself first. And like, I don't know what type of reverse psychology is Mana Hydra or Yelena thinking, or I guess she's still mourning because this is very recent. I don't know. Was this 2 months right after the second snap? I don't know. But it just makes me wonder, like, what? James, how do you feel about this chat? Also, comments so me and Jess could read out your guys' thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't bug me because realistically, who's giving Yelena this information about how Natasha died? Right?
Good.
Who's giving her this information? None of the Avengers even know that Yelena exists, except maybe Clint, right? None of them know that she even exists. So who would have told her about exactly what happened to Natasha? On top of that, Madam Hydra said that Clint was responsible for her death. So it's like we're gonna see what that all entails. Florence Pugh is in every single episode of Hawkeye, so we'll definitely get to see that resolved.
Oh, she is?
Oh yeah, she's in every single episode of Hawkeye.
I didn't know that. Nice.
So we're gonna get to see how this is gonna be resolved, and I'm assuming that she's going to be one of the main antagonists of the Hawkeye series, or maybe she'll meet Clint. They'll get into this fight, and then like he'll tell Yelena like, "Yo, like Natasha was my best friend. Like she was the godmother to my kid. Like if my newest kid was a girl, I would have named her Natasha." Right? Because they had a boy, they named him Nate. So it's like she was my best friend. But again, who would have told Yelena? So she doesn't know the difference. We don't know how long she's been working for Valentina, right? So of course she would trust Valentina, right? Especially if she's giving her this lead to get revenge. So that's how I feel about it.
And to answer Mercenary's question, here's a question: Did Yelena get snapped? they didn't show us who got stabbed, and I think at this point we don't really need to see Yelena or Menahydra who got stabbed because Yelena looks almost the same age of 5 years ago. She doesn't look like she just got stabbed, or if she did, it doesn't really matter on my perspective. They didn't mention it either. They might mention it in the Hawkeye series because James said that she's there in every single episode. So most likely they might mention it that hey, I got stabbed. I don't know about what happened to Natasha, or those 5 years I was working with Natasha, but they find out that she's gone now. Who knows? So we might get either or perspective of what might happen.
Yeah, and I want to know who else Valentina has recruited, right? Because so far we know that she has U.S. Agent, she has Yelena. Who else, right? Who's going to end up joining the Thunderbolts? Is Valentina involved with the Thunderbolts at all? Like, if she is she working behind the scenes with Ross? Like, who knows? Because Ross is continuously developing this super soldier serum, so who knows what his plan is with Valentina, if there's anything. So I really like this end credit scene. I thought it was dope to bring this in. It instantly adds weight because we know that Yelena is going to be going after Clint, who is Natasha's best friend. So her sister and her best friend are going to be fighting against each other. So it's still going to be Natasha centric in a way in some parts of Hawkeye, and I can't wait for that. So yeah, man, really excited for what's coming next for Yelena.
One curious to know, do we have any confirmation in the Hawkeye series if we know is Clint using Ronin still, or did he go back to Hawkeye? What do you know? Have we heard any confirmation about that?
I don't know of any confirmation, but I don't know if he'll continue to go by Ronin, but I don't think he's going to go by Hawkeye anymore. And Kate Bishop is going to take over that mantle as Hawkeye. I think he might call himself something else. I don't think he'll call himself Ronin because that represents like a really dark time in his life. Or, like Deku, he might take the name, flip it, and make it mean something else, make it mean something good again. So, I don't know.
Okay, so that'd be pretty interesting to see what it takes, and to see Elena, and Manahydra. I'm curious to see what's her role because Manahydra technically kind of reminds me of the reverse Coulson, like recruiting people, but not for the Avengers, recruiting her own um type of secret type of Avengers. So I'm really curious to see because she's kind of recruiting it for the government because we know the U.S. agent works for the government, but in the dark way. So I'm curious to know like what route are they taking for Madam Hydra in the MCU, and what does Yelena have with it? And curious to see where Taskmaster is gonna go in the further MCU. Again, like we spoke in the beginning of the review, are we gonna go with a new mantle, or are we gonna go with a new type of route like a anti Taskmaster, or where are we gonna go with the character?
Yeah. Chris, what up, man? Thanks for joining in. But what Chris was saying, it looks like Ronan. We're gonna see Ronan in flashbacks. So, and I'm really happy about this because I do want to see more of his time as Ronan. We don't know how many people Ronan has pissed off. Like Nova was saying a little bit earlier, we don't know how many people Ronan has killed that was associated with Valentina and with Ross. So they could be sending Yelena because she was the best widow besides Natasha. So who do you send to kill someone like Hawkeye? You send Yelena. So that could be the case. So Nova, you really might be onto something there. But yeah, man, like, go ahead.
And plus, I'm gonna add, I love what Nova said as well because to go back to James' point and to what Nova said, they're exploring both time periods during the post Endgame. And for people that didn't see, Kevin Feige said that he's interested in exploring more time periods during the MCU of Phase 1, 2, and 3 that we never got to explore of certain characters. So I love how he brought up in the most recent interview he did a couple weeks ago or last week. And when he said that, it's pretty interesting that he's more interested to tackle that. And with Disney Plus, he has more of the leeway to do that with short, limited series in a TV show where he could show, like, for example, if you want to probably reprise his role, Tony Stark, Captain America, Steve Rogers, with Robert Downey Jr., and have small roles of the MCU of Phase 1, Phase 2 to show more story of said characters, or with Hawkeye, like we're doing now, or Bruce Banner with other said characters, and it's possible. And this is what shows that the MCU is a universe. just like in the comics, you have intertwining stories of said one timeline, but a spin-off of other stories, aka the TV shows. Each stories have their own type of version. So like Star Wars, they have their own universe, but they have the books, they have the games and everything. Thank God the MCU don't do the games and comics and everything. They just do it. Movies and TV shows. So people cannot complain too much. It's not that hard.
Mark, to answer your question, like what other like anti-heroes or villains I would like to see in the MCU, I think Bullseye would be kind of cool to introduce into the MCU in the Hawkeye series. I think that would be really cool, like two master marksmen, one after the other. Obviously Doctor Doom. I mean, if you get Doctor Doom, you got me, right? So, I don't know, man. Like I
But
would
thing is,
love. Go ahead.
but with Bullseye, we had him in Daredevil, and he was such a good Bullseye in Daredevil.
Yeah.
So it would be amazing probably for him to reprise his role. And Kevin Feige said like there's endless possibilities to bring back the Netflix characters
Yeah,
into
man.
the MCU, and I would love to see Daredevil and everything. And Daredevil has worked with Hawkeye from the comics and cartoons and everything, so it would be great to see them. But we don't know too much information. Was behind closed doors. Like last week, Kevin Feige and the actor of Wolverine, his name is just
Hugh Jackman.
getting out of my head. Hugh Jackman, thank you. Just took a picture and that's all. So it's like, what are they doing? What are they discussing? Is Wolverine coming back? Who knows? Hugh Jackman, are you coming back to reprise that role? So stuff like that. It's all about discussions, all about the money, and if these actors want to come back. So I would love to see Bullseye. He was great Daredevil. It would be great to have him. I'd love to see Anti Venom. Anti Venom in the comics this past 10 years in the comics have been fantastic. If you guys have not read Venom Across Space. I forgot what's the title called exactly, but it's freaking amazing. Like Venom has improved more in this past 20 years when he was introduced back in the 80s. So I highly suggest for people to read more of anti anti Venom of Flash Thompson. Is amazing as well. But what else? Other heroes? I just want Daredevil. He's so good at. He's so good. Courtney Cox, I think that's his name, right?
Charlie Cox.
Charlie Cox. He he was so good, and I hope to see him back. Like these type of actors, and what other actor I love to see in Hawkeye or in other series. I don't know about anti-hero, but to see the brain from the Hulk, I think that's
Oh,
his
the
name, the
the
brain,
leader. The leader.
the the leader. Thank you. I love to see him. That's one I'm hoping to see, and I think they did announce that we are going to see the leader. So I can't wait to see how they're gonna look. And the CG is gonna be having a lot of money during that series because we're having She-Hulk and Hulk as well. So that's it's gonna be exciting too.
Yeah, man. Like, there's so many possibilities, and Kevin Feige, he's a comic book head, man. He's a sweaty, just like the rest of us, and all of those Netflix actors did a really good job in their role. I feel like it would be a huge mistake trying to recast John Bernthal as a Punisher. It would be a huge mistake
Ooh,
trying to recast Luke Cage. I
Kingpin, Kingpin too.
Definitely
He
not.
was
Yeah,
good.
like Vincent D'Onofrio. No, there's no way you could recast him. Like he was so amazing as Kingpin. So, like Chief was saying, I'm pretty sure they already kind of talked about bringing back Charlie Cox as Daredevil. So I don't see why they wouldn't also bring back the other characters. Um, I would also like to see. I believe it's Gabriel Luna, who played Ghost Rider in Agents of Shield. I would love for them to
He was so
bring
good.
him into the MCU because those were the besides season one. That's the only stuff from Agents of Shield that I've seen because I love that version of Ghost Rider. So I wanted to see those episodes.
Season 4 and 5 of Shield is just so good. Yes, season 2 and 3 are not perfect. They're good with for some episodes for what they are, but season 4 and 5 when they have Ghost Rider, I just want Gabriel. He did such a good job to play. I forgot the character, but the one that had the motors, the car. I forgot the Ghost Rider version name, but he was so good to play the character. He did such an amazing job.
Wasn't it
I love
Robbie
for him to come back,
Reyes?
but
Isn't
I
his
think
name
he is Robbie
Robbie
Reyes.
Robbie
Yeah,
Reyes? Yeah. And then the one on the bike is Johnny
yeah.
Blaze.
Yeah, Johnny Blaze. So Robbie Reyes was so good. They go to CG on Shield. Like that was a TV budget, but imagine on the MCU and everything how he looks. And Gabriel Luna who does want to come back. He said if they call my number, they have it. I will be glad to be back, and I love to see him. But I think Kevin Feige has announced that they're doing a different direction for Ghost Rider and like that. So, what can you do? But hopefully, they find some way to bring him back in future. You can have more than one Ghost Rider. There are times because once they become a Ghost Rider, they will always be a Ghost Rider no matter what.
Yeah. Chris, I'm with you, man. Like, getting to see D'Onofrio and Tom Holland playing off of each other, I would lose it, bro. Lose it.
Kingpin and Spider-Man on live action instead of cartoon and comics. Oh my god, I will literally have a what is it that I'm getting sweaty. That's what it is. Like that will get me sweaty for 100%. Like just seeing those two on screen, I'll be sweaty as hell.
Yeah, man. But what are your final thoughts on Black Widow so we can wrap up for the night?
So to wrap up for the night for Black Widow, my thoughts are: hey, I had a great time. Beautiful storytelling. Felt the emotion of a family. Felt the emotion of a dysfunctional family. If you haven't seen those, there's all of them all the way around them. Your friends, your family, cousins have those type of problems, and it shows it on screen. You could relate, you could connect them, and you could feel and understand what's the problems going on with that film. Sorry, with that family and the action, the choreography. It was amazing. This was directed by a woman, and I had no problem with it. I had a great time with it. And to be directed by a woman and a lead woman in the role, it had no type of forced type of commentary about men. It had no type of forced commentary about how men is bad. And like that, it showed the beautiful action of the widows. It showed the beautiful action of Natasha as the lead role, and it shows the comedy not forced either. A Red Guardian of him putting the suit, of them being assassins, and about them having problems and everything. And they didn't have no type of sexy pose or sexy shot, but they made the comedy of the poses that Natasha has done. And they completed the movie with the MacGuffin type of way, but it felt self-contained in the MCU in a grander scale, but it connected into the grander scale of the future MCU of Phase 4. So I was entertained. For those that don't want to watch it because it has no consequences, like, yo, if you enjoyed the MCU for what it is and you enjoy comics, see it as that. What James and myself mentioned earlier, this is like a comic book universe, and it's self-contained for each film, but it has a grander scale at the end. That's how comic book stories that has a connected tissue is always been told. That's how it is in the movie format, but now they just added much more with the TV shows and tells more of a character development, more with the characters, and I enjoy it. And I hope we see the Widows, Taskmaster. Please give me fucking Taskmaster. I want to see more of him because I want to see Taskmaster versus Spider-Man and maybe some version of Captain America, aka Sam Wilson. I want that. That'll be freaking amazing. But other than that, I had a great time again. 8.5 out of 10. I don't know my ranking. I probably will do a ranking one day for the MCU and everything, but a 4 out of 5 as well.
Yeah, man. Like, I'll just echo everything that you just said. Like, again, like, I love to see strong female-led properties, movies, TV shows, whatever it is. My problem with Hollywood, like Edlin saying in chat right now, right? Like, I hate it when it's in movies like, oh, yes, she's got to have a boyfriend. There has to be some romantic love interest or else it's not going to work. It's like in Little Women. She's writing all of these amazing stories, and then whenever she takes it to a publisher, but when does she get married? Why does she need to get married? She can just do badass shit, and that's it, right? So again, this was a movie where you just showed me badass women doing badass shit. There was no forced drama. There was no forced relationship drama. There was no forced dialogue. All men are terrible. Of course there are terrible men. There are terrible women. People are terrible. There are terrible people, right? The villain of this movie happened to be a man, and that's all that it was. Again, unlike Charlie's Angels, who from the first 3 minutes of the film, just the whole film is just men are terrible, and that's why women are awesome. I don't want to see those movies, and that's exactly why that Charlie's Angels film is not going to get any sequels, because it's not a good movie, and it focused on the wrong part of the message. Give me more movies like Atomic Blonde. Give me more movies like Black Widow. These are the types of things that I want to see. As much as like all of the movies that Mila Jovovich are in, they might not be awesome, but she's fucking awesome in them, right? Charlize Theron, amazing in the Old Guard. Even though Aeon Flux isn't that great of a movie, she's amazing in it. Give me those roles. These are the things that I want to see, right? Supergirl. The reason why I don't vibe with Supergirl. This is another show. Oh,
Always needs to have a boyfriend.
men are terrible. This is why women are awesome, and they have to have all of these different relationship drama and all of this bullshit. In the first season, I think Kara has like 3 or 4 love interests. Why? Why do we need this at all? You know what I mean? But I digress. Loved Black Widow. I thought it was exactly what we needed for Black Widow right now. Like some people were saying in chat earlier on, I really wish Black Widow came out before Infinity War and Endgame, but it kind of just is what it is. I still felt the stakes of the film. I still felt the stakes from the widows and everything that comes with that. So it's still a really, really solid film to me. Again, it's about family, redemption. It's a deep character story. Really good spy film. And again, love to see the widows, and I can't wait to see where it goes. So I will give Black Widow a 4.5 out of 5. It doesn't get a perfect score for me, because they really, really dropped the ball on Taskmaster. They really, really dropped the ball. Yeah. So, yeah, man. So,
I was just gonna comment with what you said about the love interest and what Chief said, because I love how in Winter Soldier they also had Natasha and Steve as friends, and I love how in the MCU they don't always force relationships, because it's an understanding that humans could be friends too, man or woman, don't matter gender. It doesn't always have to have a love interest all the time just to have us audience to be entertained. We have love interests in our own lives, and our own love lives are complicated enough. We just want to see a good movie, love interest or not, just be entertaining overall. And I love how in this film, Black Widow, she had no love interest, and it's just hopefully continues that throughout the MCU, that they know. And I feel like they've been improving with that aspect with the love interest, and just have character development and character progression the most important with the story pacing itself. You're on mute, James.
my
You're
bad.
mute.
Sorry. Like Sin was saying,
No worries.
he was going to challenge me on the timing of the Black Widow release, because what was it? The fact that we know about her fate gets rid of the oh shit, she's going to die, and any other concerns. I mean, yeah, that makes sense, right? We were already mentally prepared for her to die, so we didn't have to worry about getting that oh shit moment. So yeah, I mean, that makes complete sense. I'll take that. Yeah, for sure.
And I agree as well, because at the end of the day, it gives more story of the character. Like, for example, we added more story of Sam Wilson, WandaVision. Like, these stories is what gives it gives those little type of pocket hole inside. It gives us more information of the character. Like you mentioned before, and like myself, these are comic book stories, and you don't need to watch them in release order now. Technically, now they're being made in chronological. I can never say that
Chronological.
word correctly, but you get, yes, that word. You can watch them in that type of order, and you can see it more in a much better soothing way, instead of actually seeing in release order. Because if you see in release order, you'll be hella confused. But now, if you see it in that type of order, in the way it tells the story, it'd be much more sense.
Yeah. And John, thanks for jumping in, man. Don't worry. Vash says he'll be done by August 31st, so we'll see. If he's not done by then, he'll start losing waifus on the list. So it's up to him, really.
Well, I just had a hiccup of apartment, so now I'm gonna be more busy. So let's see how that goes. But
Yeah, we'll see
that's a
how
whole
that
different
goes.
conversation on a different show. But overall, this was a great review. I had a good time. Hopefully people that watch and come back, please comment below down your thoughts, what you guys thought about the film, because we would love to hear. Tweet at us as well what you guys thought about the film. Tweet at hashtag me and James, or sorry, not hashtag, at me and James, and put the hashtag Black Widow in the C4SVillains, because we would love to know what other people's thoughts is, if you agree with us or if you disagree with us, because we would love to, you guys, have a conversation. And also join our Discord of the C4s, where we talk about comic book films and pop culture films overall as well.
Yeah, man. Vash, where can the people find you online?
Other than that, don't forget to follow me at Legendary Vash everywhere else on social media. And don't forget to follow at Anime Lately YouTube channel, Twitter, and the Twitch. Because you know why? Anime Ladies having a giveaway because the anime podcast that me, myself, James, and Sam and Ray Apollo became games and technically the waifu sniper because they're trying to steal waifus from me. We made 100 episodes of the anime podcast. Yes, we have done 3 phases of the anime podcast itself. We're talking about have more, but we already passed 100. So we're doing a giveaway of 1 manga or webtoon or Blu-ray, whichever you want. But we having 2 winners, and you get Pokemon cards from Ray Apollo himself. So definitely hashtag Anime Lady giveaway. Continue. You have until July 29th. We will announce the winners on episode 104 that night. So definitely stay tuned. Episode 102 is this Thursday evening. Maybe 50-50. I might be on there or not because I haven't been told my schedule yet. But definitely stay tuned. Episode 104, we'll announce 2 winners. And also, US only. I keep forgetting to mention that. Not international. US only. US only. US only. Just in case.
Yes, US only for that giveaway. So if you want to be a part of that, make sure you guys are following us. Make sure you pay attention to the Anime Lately podcast every single Thursday. And of course, the Shonen Ronin every single Sunday, where we break down not every, but we break down 2 or 3 of the newest chapter releases that come out on that day. But for myself, you can follow me all over social media at JB Exclusive. The easiest way to find out absolutely everything that I do is at carefulforspoilers.com. You'll find links to the Patreon. So until we get monetized, that's how you guys can support the channel. The merch store is up right now. We only have a few t-shirts up right now. I'm actually working on some custom comic book designs. You know, I want to skirt around the copyright stuff, but I want to create some really cool fun t-shirts and hoodies for you guys, and some joggers too, so stay tuned for that. Keep an eye on the merch store. On Friday,
I haven't been told about this even, so this is news to me too.
On Friday, make sure you guys tune in at 8 p.m. CST for the Loki finale review. Tomorrow, I'm going to be live tweeting my reaction as I'm watching Loki, but on Friday, we'll be doing the full finale review. We're going to have Abe and Steve from Inside the Mind of the Blurred podcast and the Osei A podcast, and Aaron from the Black Anime podcast will also be joining us as well. Hopefully, Vash will be there. I'm not sure what his production schedule is going to be
on Friday.
like for
I'm
the
good.
rest of the week.
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, so we're going to have a full
Me
panel.
on Friday, I'm good.
Sweet. Full panel on Friday, so make sure you guys stay tuned for that. As a matter of fact, the stream link is already available on the channel, so go ahead and if you don't mind, set your reminders right now. Go like the video right now so that when the video drops on Friday, you are reminded to come and join us for the Loki finale. Who is behind the TVA? Is it King Loki? Is it Eicol? Is it Classic Loki? Is it He Who Remains? Is it Kang the Conqueror? Is it Immortus? Who knows? We're going to talk about all of it on Friday on Villains. So for Vash and myself, until Friday, we will see you guys on the next one.